Morning folks, and welcome to another mixed feedback video. So finally I got me some more bass strapping. I got me these kind of cubed shape foam bass straps for the upper corners, and I have to say they do make kind of a difference. The low end is still pretty strong here in this room, but that's just to be expected. But it's much more controlled, so that is interesting and I'm liking it. But it's still an ongoing process in here, so yeah, it will still get better. But definitely what I know is I can rely on the lower mid-range a little bit more because of this. So let's get into the first one for today by Aurélien Cros. Overall, this sounds really good. I'd say you can keep it like that. Personally, I would perhaps just give the vocals a little bit more presence in the upper mid-range so they can stand out just a touch more. But otherwise, this is a pretty good mix. I'm also liking the music. So you say in December you're gonna release an album. Let me know by then and I'll be sure to check it out. Next one is by Tomi Kangas. Right off the bat, the kick has too much top range click. This is also a pretty high frequency, so you definitely want to take that down a little bit because it's popping out of the mix too much and it feels disconnected. The rhythm guitars also have quite the strong low end, around 100 Hertz. You may want to dip that down a little bit so that it doesn't start to get too muddy and so they don't clash with the bass guitar too much. And perhaps they can also benefit from a little bit of low end compression, just using a multi-band compressor and compress that low end range so that the palm mutes don't become too strong in that area. And they also sound quite bright and fizzy. That's again more of a stylistic thing. If that's what you're going for, it's totally cool. Personally, I think they could perhaps benefit from a little bit more low pass filtering so they don't get too fizzy. And then there's also a little bit of a resonance frequency somewhere in the, I want to say 6K range, that you may want to dip down a little bit with a surgical EQ. Yeah, it's this 5 to 6K range that's quite bright. There's some resonance going on. That's just this constant psst sound. Yeah, that's it for this mix. Next one is by Jussi Pollari. Overall, this is a pretty solid mix. The only thing I'd say is if you put a top shelf boost on your master bus, you may want to ease up on that because it's actually making the overheads a little bit harsh. Or if you boosted the overheads in the top range, you may want to ease up on it. The snare has a lot of that typical rattling snare sound. It's again a stylistic thing. So if you like it like that, just feel free to keep it. Personally, I'd say perhaps a little less of that rattling and a little bit more body would benefit this style of music. And just some EQ moves can help you to get a bit more control over that. Or if you have access to the different top mic and bottom mic for the snare, then you may want to take down the bottom mic a little bit. Or take it out altogether. I never use the bottom mic for my drums. I think the overheads are also pretty heavily compressed, which can also add to the harshness. So the mix as a whole is pretty good. It's just the overheads I think could benefit from a little bit more work. Yeah, that's about everything I can say here. Next one is by a cryptic Russian name again, and please next time also write me your name in letters that I can actually read. Hang on, here in the URL on your SoundCloud link, there's something readable. jettypyxqqod. Something around those lines. Yeah, I'll put that and your Russian name in the description. Oh, wow. So that sub range, like 50 hertz and below, sounds super duper strong on the bass guitar, and it's actually messing stuff up a little bit. It's masking the kick drum. Stuff sounds a little bit muddy in the low range. Actually almost sounds like you added some kind of clean sine wave to go along with what the guitars and the bass is playing, and it's filling up that very deep sub range. Whatever you did there, I think it's rather messing with your mix in a bad way. A general rule of thumb is you could filter the bass guitar at 50 to 60 hertz and leave the range below for the thump of the kick. And usually when that happens, the bass doesn't sound the way it does right now. The mix as a whole is also very heavily compressed. And the right guitar is more present than the left one. So either you need to work on the volume balance on the two sides, or you did some different EQ moves on both sides and that's making them out of balance. How did I get here? What has led me to being that so? How could I have let these Wow, dude, the toms need gating. They are booming on like crazy. It's not really good. Especially when the toms are doing some fills within the song. They are just destroying your low end completely. So yeah, overall, at this point, I'd say your low end needs some more work. Not sure what happened that it turned out the way it did. I know people usually say, don't use headphones, they lie. Yes, they have their drawbacks, of course, but you will not get any kind of problem with the low end. Because you don't have any problems with room acoustics and whatnot, so headphones are perfectly fine to at least check your low end. And I highly recommend that. just get a decent pair of headphones. I got the AKG, what's it again? K701s. So these are really, really good. Some of the best in their price range right now. Next one is by Philipp Simon. Yeah, I think overall this is a pretty decent mix. Just the guitars could come up a little bit, because everything else is at a good balance. At first I thought the snare is perhaps a little bit loud, but then also the rest of the drums are kind of a little bit louder compared to the guitars, and also the vocals are louder than the guitars. So it's really just the guitars that need to come up. And I suspect when you do that, the kick drum might need a little bit more top range click to cut through. Yeah, and that is that. Next one is by Logan from Ataraxia. Right off the bat from this point, guitars could come down a little bit. The bass guitar has quite the build-up at around 200 Hertz. You may want to check that out. It's kind of messing with your lower mid-range, making it kind of muddy. And when you take that down, I suspect you may want to raise around 100 Hertz a little bit more to retain some girth in that bass. Here in that part just now, you notice the guitars definitely need to come down a little bit, and that melody that's going on there, it's a bit too far in the background. I cannot even make out what instrument it is. You want to think a little bit more from the viewpoint of the listener. For the listener, these kinds of melodies that come in, those are interesting things. So you want to make those really audible. You want to make those stand out. Here too, again, you notice this melody going on with those synth pads in the background, and it sounds really cool, but you want to make it a bit clearer, a bit more upfront, a bit more in your face. Right now, the way they are mixed, I feel more like background stuff and not really foreground stuff. Especially that melody that's going on now, again, it's hard to tell what instrument that actually is because it's so washed up and it melts with the synth pad that's in the background completely. So also EQ wise, you may want to separate those two things a little bit. Perhaps make the melody a bit more top range focused and the synth pad a bit more lower range focused, just so you get a little bit more separation. Yeah, so definitely, since you also don't have vocals that stand on top, you want to make these kind of leads, these melodies, be that focus point. Next one is by Nath. Nath question mark.
Fucked up, stretched out, fucked over, without a doubt. I blame you, I blame the system, I blame everyone else, but never myself. I call shit on this life. I can't live with this strife. I'm furious, don't know why. It's been looming all this time. Another day of strain, of life filled with pain. Sunburned every day, fucked up in my ways. Another day of strain, of life filled with pain. Sunburned every day, fucked up in my ways.
Overall, I think this is a very good mix. Nothing really that I could say about it. One thing I could say, but you could try it out, but it's not really necessary, perhaps. The snare drum could come down a little bit. It seems to pop out just a tiny bit too much. But otherwise, this is solid work.
Another day of strain, sunburned every day, fucked up in my ways.
And here in this part, and also before in the other chorus, the clean guitar could come back a little bit.
Another day of strain, a life filled with pain, sunburned every day, fucked up in my ways.
Yeah, the clean guitar is taking up a bit too much presence in the chorus, but otherwise this is solid work. Okay, and last one for today, and also last one in my list right now. So if you want to submit a mix for review, send it to johnnymixcrit@gmail.com. And then I think I'm gonna have to wait a little bit to get some more stuff in here before I can make another video. So this last one is by Leon Grinberg. right off the bat, the overheads are too loud. They kind of take up all the presence. Those could come down a couple of dB. And I think the snare then could also come down a little bit. Or you could also do the other way around, raise the guitars quite a bit more, and then the kick will also need to come up. Yeah, definitely need some work in volume balance department. The rhythm guitars are quite low, quite behind, and then the lead guitar pops out just too much. Yeah, overall at this point all I can really say is volume balance. It needs more work. So overheads need to come down, rhythm guitars need to come up. And when the rhythm guitars come up, the kick will need to come up and it will need more click to cut through. Okay. And that's also everything I can say about this. So, my inbox is empty. Send me your stuff, people. This is really the kind of series that will go on if you wanted to. So, this is not up to me. It's up to you, the viewer. One of those content things again that are directly influenced by you, not by me. So, keep them coming if you like. Again, that's johnnymixcrit@gmail.com. Just send me the URL to your mix, beat streaming, beat download. That's all completely fine now. Just make sure it works. It happened a few times now that stuff didn't really work. A site didn't want to play the file, or I had to log into something before I could download stuff, and yeah, nah. Just send me a direct link, please. That would be awesome. Then I shall see you next time.